Hello.
Hello,
Hi, Thiruben.
I'm Stan.
Welcome to this session.
Thank you for having me here.
Thanks for taking the time to share a little bit about your sport, how your sport has been a huge part of your life.
Yeah.
And I hope today it's a chance also for you to maybe look back a little bit
Yeah.
and try and remember some of the things that has made life very interesting for you as an athlete. So maybe what we can do is just start off by having you talk a bit about when did you start your sport, how did you get involved in track and field?
Okay. So actually, all this while since young, I was always a footballer. So football was always my passion. It's what I was always watching on TV. Every day after school, I was playing football. But when I actually went to my secondary school, which is National Junior College, they didn't offer football as a CCA. So I had to choose sports CCA because I just wanted to do something that was active. So I was considering a few options. There was basketball, canoeing, but nothing really felt like it suited me. So I actually decided, since my parents used to be track and field athletes, my dad was a runner back in Malaysia, so I thought I'd give it a try, and that's really just how I started.
So no football, but track and field is in your genes.
Yeah.
Maybe a bit about what your dad was doing as an athlete back then. What event was he running?
So actually, my dad was running all kinds of events. Like he grew up in Ipoh, and I think back then they didn't really have a lot of proper guidance for running. So my dad maybe didn't have the best footwear and all that. So it's really just a passion thing for him. I know that he went for a few long distance races. He ran a few 400-meter races. Yeah. So my dad has always been very active also. Even up to now, he's playing all sports, football, dragon boating. So yeah, I would say that seeing him take part in all these sports actually gave me my own interest into sports when I was younger. Yeah.
So did he suggest track and field actively to you?
Yeah, I think it was my dad, a bit of my mom as well. So I think they wanted me to be a sports person as well. Yeah, and before that I wouldn't say I had a lot of experience in running, but definitely because in my school I only started my CCA in the second year. So my first year I did get a chance, to do a bit of running in PE classes, and I actually took part in the school's road run, and I was the first for my level. So that gave me a bit of confidence that actually maybe I could try out track and field.
So this was in Sec 1?
Sec 1.
When you first realized that, hang on, I'm faster than everybody.
Yeah, I guess so.
And with that knowledge, you just say, okay, I'll try track and field, or did the teachers come knocking on your door and say, hey, you come here?
To be honest, I've kind of forgotten which party approached which first, but I think it did help that I performed well in my school's road run. So the teachers saw that and they were like, okay, maybe you have some potential. So they didn't mind letting me try. Because actually, another thing is about my school is track and field is only a girls' CCA for the first 4 years. So I had to go in under this thing called the talent management scheme in my school. Yeah, so that's how it kind of started.
So that was the start of competitive track and field. And not only the start for you, it was also start for your school. You were essentially trailblazing a new program for guys.
Kind of, yeah. There's just very few guys actually from the C and B divisions actually in track and field. It was mostly just the A division guys. Yeah.
And so talking about C division, what was your experience like as a competitive athlete at that level for you?
So I remember my first race was actually a cross-country race at Bedok Reservoir, and it was a whole new experience for me because never before had I even thought of a competitive race. So I remember I started off quite fast, and usually when you run races and you see someone start very far off, and I wasn't really from one of the traditional powerhouses, from not the Pachong, not from RI or SGI. So I think everyone kind of let me go in front because they thought I would just die out. Yeah. So, but to their surprise, I actually kept the pace going all the way. I actually narrowly missed out first. I got second for the race. If I had learned how to pace myself better, maybe I had a better chance of winning. But I just went off way too fast because of the inexperience. And yeah,
Do you still recall the reaction among your peers when you finished second?
I think my teammates were they were probably surprised because I did think that I would do well. I remember asking my teacher before the race, where do you think I would place? And he said that you have a chance maybe to get top 10. Yeah, but I didn't think I would do this well. And I think later on when I was recounting this race with my friends from other schools who were running that race, they actually told me well, we had no idea who you were. Like we just thought you were just some random guy. We just let you go. Like we didn't bother trying to catch you up because we thought you would die out. Yeah, so yeah, that was what it was.
So that's when you first came to prominence among your cohort. So that gave you, I presume, confidence to keep going in the sport. How was the transition to B division?
Yeah, so actually we did C-Div as well. It was quite funny that year, my secondary 2 year, I had like 5 consecutive races where I finished second. So it was 3 cross-country races, and then in my national track and field championship, so I got second for both the 1,500 and 3,000. And because of that, I actually got selected to run for Singapore schools. It's an inter-school meet between Malaysia, Australia, and Singapore. And I actually got my first gold medal there. So I think that moment especially told me that, wow, I really am enjoying this, and since I have quite a lot of potential in it. So when I went into going into B division, I was a lot more focused. I was taking training very seriously, probably more than my other peers around me. Because I don't know, I think my personality is also someone that if I find something that I enjoy, I'm good at, and I'm quite tunnel vision. Like I really dedicate a lot of my efforts towards that. So going to B division, my sec 3 year I actually tried out a different event. So I dropped down the distance to 800 and 1,005, but I was focusing on the 1,005. So 800 was just supposed to be a second event for me, but surprisingly I did quite well in it. So I won the B division in sec 3 for 800.
But before we continue on B division, maybe going back to your first experience with Singapore schools. So that would have been an experience where for the first time you are representing Singapore.
Yeah.
If you think back now on that occasion, what comes to mind?
I think actually, if I would say one very memorable race, it has to be that. Also because of how it kind of panned out, like the race was supposed to be at night, but there was a lightning alert. So
where was this?
This was at Bishan Stadium. Yeah. So there was a lightning alert, and we actually thought that it was going to be postponed at one point. So we were warming up, and then the lightning alert didn't seem like it was going to stop. And because of, I think, the other countries' travel arrangements, they were telling us that there's a chance that we might just cancel the race. So I was so half of us, we were thinking, from thinking like I was not going to race, to like there was a last minute call that actually the lightning alert's off, like let's run now. And what they did is they actually combined my age category with the higher age category. So the under 14, under 15s actually ran together. So it was a bit confusing because I had no clue who I was exactly competing against. I don't know who were the older guys, who were the young, like the people my age. So it's just quite funny. Like I remember just going through the first 2 rounds, and then I saw this Australian guy in front of me. Then I just decided, okay, I think he's my age, and I think he's in front of me. So I'm just going to try and beat him.
So this was a 1500.
1500. Yeah.
So the pacing was all messed up because you didn't know who was who in running which category.
Exactly. Yeah. So I just decided to follow that guy, and thankfully there was the right person to follow because he was in front and I was second. So the last 100 meters I managed to overtake him, and I got goal. So even after the race finished, I had no idea where I placed. So we had to wait until the results came out like 30 minutes later. Then I saw on the results sheet. Then because I was really happy because my school actually came down as well, my track team, because we don't really have a lot of people who represent Singapore or Singapore schools. So the whole school came down. Even the vice principal came down. Yeah, but I think most of them actually left because they thought the race was going to be postponed. Like it was almost close to 10 p.m. already. Yeah.
So that was your first ever medal for Singapore.
Yeah.
And you still keep it?
Yeah, definitely. I have all my medals out in my room. Nicely arranged and everything.
Okay. So going to B division, of course the competition steps up. Tell us about those couple of years in B division.
So my B division years, definitely competition stepped up. So I didn't go into it expecting to win everything because I was competing against the Sec 4 athletes, and there were a few like athletes from my SJI sports school were quite strong. Yeah. So and then the decision to actually run the 800 meters, I remember I was supposed to run the 1,005 and steeplechase, but my teacher told me, you know what, we're a bit worried that you get injured, so let's just run the 800. But surprisingly, that 800 meter race was also quite a memorable one because the winning margin for me was 0.04 seconds that I won that race. Yeah, it was I was really far back at 100 meters left. I think I was like 4th or 5th, but I managed to close the gap and just about outdid the guy in front. So yeah, that was also another one of my more memorable races. So I got first for my 800 and third for my 1005 that year.
And you were running as a Sec 3.
Sec 3, yeah.
Okay, so you outran older athletes.
Yeah. And then I went for that same competition again, the international meet between the Australian Walla meet. Yeah, so but this was in KL this time. And again I got 3 silvers. I was having like a thing with keep getting silver medals, but I got 3 silvers for the 800, 1005 and the 4x4. Yeah. And it was all by very close margins as well. But it was really a good opportunity again to race, and I clocked some good times. So I ran 202 for my 800, which at that time, now when I look back, actually I'm a bit more impressed at it because I was only 14, like I didn't turn 15 yet, and 202 is actually quite a timing that will place me quite high in the men's ranking. Yeah, I would be, if I ran that this year, I'll be one of the top 3 or 4. So I think I didn't realize back then like how promising it was. Until now when I look back, yeah.
Okay. So for when you reach B division, when did the national selectors come knocking on your door?
Yeah, so my first time representing the actual national team was in Sec 4 because I had qualified for the Asian Junior Championships. I ran a 2 minutes flat timing for my 800, so that actually was within the qualifying timing. So that was in Vietnam. So in Asian Junior Championship was my first time.
Can you recall the call up, the selection? What struck you about the whole process?
I think I remember just being surprised because I didn't even pay attention to it because Asian Juniors is an under 20 competition. So I didn't think that the qualifying would be like, I expected it to be faster actually. So I think it was just a bit of lucky that perhaps the previous edition, whoever finished in 6th place was a bit of a slow timing, so I managed to get in. So I was very surprised and very excited also because to be that young and going for such a big meet was quite a huge thing. Yeah.
Tell us about that meet. Tell us about the whole experience of representing Singapore now at a higher level. So you've represented Singapore at schools level, right?
Yeah.
Now you're talking about national youth team.
Yeah. I was very surreal because right from the start when you go and collect your attire, then instead of saying Singapore schools, it's now the actual Singapore team attire that even the senior athletes wear. So yeah, it was very surreal. And then being there itself, I kind of just like immersed myself in that atmosphere of being in like a kind of like games village kind of feel. You see athletes from other countries. It's not just Malaysia and Australia now. It's all over Asia. And athletes that were much bigger than me. So going there was just mostly, I was thinking I just want to get a good experience out of it, run a fast time. Yeah. The heats itself, I didn't expect to qualify for the final, and I wasn't close to qualifying either. Like, I ran a good time, 2 minutes flat again. But I was 8th in my heat, so 8 out of 8 for my heat. It was quite close actually. It was a good battle with me and 8th and 7th place. But that whole thing was just very eye-opening. Because I saw athletes that were a few years older than me running like very fast times, 152, 151. So that was something that I actually could aim for. So I was thinking that for the next Asian Juniors, when I come here again, I want to be more competitive. When I'm 18, I want to really give it a try for a medal. So it was a really good kind of checkpoint for me to see that I'm progressing really well. I've actually managed to qualify for the national team. Yeah.
So you found going to Vietnam an eye-opening experience.
Yeah.
You found it encouraging. You did not go there and feel that
No.
oh no, I'm not going to do this again. You found it inspiring to
Yeah.
keep going.
Yeah, because I knew what my age was relative to everyone else. I hadn't even turned 16 yet, but there were 19-year-olds that I was racing against. So yeah, I was just there to learn and kind of enjoy the experience.
Maybe everybody can just talk a little bit about the education pathway that you took while you were starting to explore track and field pursuit.
So I was in National Junior College, and it was actually part of the 6-year IP program. So I didn't have to take my O-levels. It was a true train straight to A-levels. So I think that actually gave me a bit more kind of leeway. So like even in my Sec 3, Sec 4 years, which may have been very stressful preparing for O-levels, but I could actually focus more on my track and field. Yeah. So probably sometimes to my own detriment because I was so focused on my sports that at times I would have to like rush and catch up for before exams and all that. But it definitely gave me a bit of room to explore different possibilities that maybe if I had that constraint of O levels I wouldn't have been able to. Yeah.
If I can bring you back to even before you got into NJ, do
Okay.
you still recall what were the considerations for choosing NJ, the IB program? Did it have anything to do with your sport? Or
It didn't really have to do much with my sport, but yeah, actually, honestly, I feel like it was quite random, but it was probably because my parents wanted me to go to a co-ed school, and they were a bit against me going to a single-sex school. So NJ was one of the better, maybe the best co-ed school at the time. So results-wise,
what's the reason behind that?
I don't know. I guess they just wanted me to learn how to interact with other genders. Yeah, and I actually entered NJ through the academic DSA. So I sat for like the written test and went for an interview and did well enough to be selected.
So going to NJ and doing the IB program, you were saying that actually gave you a bit more time to explore track and field and pursue it a lot more seriously, but sometimes messes up your studies.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about what was it like being a student athlete, juggling your sport study as you headed into maybe look at the first couple of years and then compare it with Sec 3, Sec 4, maybe the first couple of years first, C Division and Sec 1 and Sec 2.
I think maybe Sec 1 and Sec 2, I guess the workload wasn't as much yet. I still found it quite manageable. So I was able to manage my time quite well. And I think at the time as well, I was a bit, I guess at the age you're a bit ignorant to all this. You don't feel I didn't get too stressed out that easily. So I was really just enjoying what I did. So even in school, if there was like a lot of homework or anything, it didn't really bother me too much. And also at that time, my training was probably about 3 to 4 times a week. So not as time intensive. So I didn't find it too difficult at that point. My grades were still quite okay. Then as we got into Sec 3, Sec 4, I guess there was a bit more, my training first of all got a bit more frequent. So I was training up to 6 times a week. Then of course there's a greater load in school. So there were times where I found it a bit difficult, but I could rely on the fact that I think I learned stuff quite quickly. So I kind of like gave myself the last 2 weeks before the exams to catch up everything. And I think at that point it was still okay to do that. Yeah. Looking back, probably that same mindset wouldn't have worked well for A levels. But at that stage, Sec 3, Sec 4, I think I still kind of got away with it. Yeah, and my school also has this boarding program. So one term every year we stay in a boarding school. So just something that I remember quite particularly is, I mean, boarding was always a fun thing. So all my friends would be, it's like an endless sleepover, essentially. You can go over to your friends' rooms, no one's going to tell you to sleep early or anything like that. But for me, I was so focused on my track and field that even though there was my friends just all like next to me, staying next to me, I was like so dead serious about sleeping on time. Like literally like sleeping at like 10 p.m. and 11 p.m. It didn't seem like much of a sacrifice to me because I was just very focused on doing well for my track. So that my friends would always be inviting me over, but I was just like, no, I can't, I have training tomorrow.
On the issue of boarding, you did that for what, 6 months of the year?
It was one term, so it's about
12
8
weeks.
to 10 weeks,
10 weeks.
around it.
So, what did you find advantages about boarding? You brought it up because of why did you bring up boarding? What was the experience about it that
I brought it up because actually it did teach me a lot of things. Definitely you have to be more independent. So like just simple stuff like taking care of your own laundry, and I guess also not having my family around me all the time. So overall the experience, but it was something fun. Like everyone looked forward to it because you're with your friends, and there were activities at night that you can do. And I think it was tough like the first year. I remember I was quite feeling a bit homesick. Yeah. But then as the year goes on, as the remaining other 3 years, it was just a lot of fun. And I do remember that because of how the boarding schedule worked, after school I had to rush for training outside of school. Then I had to rush back in time for the boarding activity. So I do remember at one point feeling quite stressed because of that, because it was really quite hectic. Yeah, because I was training externally at that point from Sec 3 onwards. Yeah, so that commute back and forth and I didn't have the time that my friends had to perhaps like rest after school before the boarding program started. So I had to actually that supposedly rest period was me training, and then I will only be able to do my work at the end of all the programs, which is like 9 p.m. plus. And of course, when you factor in being very tired from training, so it did get a bit overwhelming at first, but yeah, that I'm thankful for that experience actually.
You were describing boarding as an endless sleepover, so
Yeah.
I presume that meant it was very fun and people want to hang out with you.
Yeah.
How did you maintain such self-discipline? What drove you to keep sleeping early, doing your homework, getting enough rest?
I honestly, I'm not even sure myself how I found that discipline. But I think it's just because of maybe I saw that success quite early on, and then to me I kind of had a feel of this is something that I mean it felt good. Winning always feels good. There's no other way to say it. Like it just and I wanted to succeed more in my sport. And beyond that, I think having found something that I truly was passionate about and they gave me a lot of it was kind of like an ego boost also to find something that you truly felt like you belong in. Yeah. Because before that, when I was in football, I was good, but I didn't really feel like I was like completely. Maybe I didn't really sort of enjoy the community around me as much as I did for the track and field. So once I found something that I was so invested in, I think naturally it made it easier to commit my time, to be more self-disciplined. Yeah, and then of course there's that. When I went overseas to compete, and then I saw that if I really train hard, I have all the potential to succeed. So it's really up to me at that point, and I realized that whatever I did now was going to kind of like determine how well I do in the future. So I just took it with that seriousness.
To me, you use the phrase "up to you." So would it be correct to say that you felt that you could control quite a bit of the elements around how you train, how you study, how you rested?
Yeah, I would say so because I think it's very easy to just slack off. I didn't have to train that many times a week. Yeah, because it wasn't like anyone was really forcing me to do it. So it's something that I felt I was in control in. I was doing it out on my own accord. Like I didn't feel as though it didn't feel like a chore to me. It just felt something that I wanted to do every day. Yeah, it was just like a part of my lifestyle, being a student athlete. Yeah. So
You use the word ego boost. I guess if you look back, how did that develop you as who you are? Talk a little bit about how you felt as a person at 15, at 16, doing well in the sport. What did it do to you?
definitely helped my self-confidence a lot. I wouldn't say I was someone that was suffering a lot from my low self-esteem before that as a younger person. But I probably never felt that something that I truly belonged to. I kind of, like I mentioned earlier, when I was playing a lot of football in primary school, I also had the chance to train with the Junior Sports Academy. But I didn't really enjoy it that much because I really love football, but I didn't really enjoy the training as much. So I guess that actually gave me a bit less, like kind of made my confidence take a hit a bit. Because I remember there was this overseas competition I went to for football in primary 6. But I wasn't really playing very well there, and I think it's also because I wasn't confident enough. Yeah, so football was kind of like here and there. So instantly when I started track and field, and I was suddenly so much more successful in it, and it just felt like something that was meant for me. Yeah, so the more I competed, and then the more you kind of you do well, and it really does kind of make you feel like you're more capable as a young person. Yeah. Because of course, maybe now as I'm much older, I may not attach my self-worth so much into the sport. I kind of have other things going for me. Yeah.
You look at yourself now. What do you see? Who are you? Who are you then? To describe yourself to me as a 15-year-old.
Yeah. I think I was just someone full of a lot of energy I had so much energy to train and to be in school, and I was just, I guess, a bit naive. Life was very simple for me back then. It was just training and just train, spend time with my friends in school. Yeah, so kind of I would say I was a bit blissfully unaware. very excited to run and to compete. Yeah, that's the person I was back then, and also kind of finding my way to like truly feeling like who I was as a person. Yeah.
When you say blissfully unaware, I guess moving on to the next stage of life after Sec 4,
Yeah.
I suppose that next phase, what did you become more aware of then as you became older, and what was life like? Let's talk a bit about now,
Yeah.
A division time.
So actually, I would say I kind of carried the same mentality over to my JC 1 year, and I would say when I look back now, JC 1 was probably like the best year for me for my track and field so far up to now, because I started. So there was that switch of events happened for me, and so I was supposed to be training for the 800 and 1005, but there was this one meet where after running both those events, my coach told me to run the 400 meters just to try it out, just to take it as training. So I just went for it, and surprisingly, I ran a very fast time. It was 50.1. So then it was like, okay, maybe we found something here. Like, you shouldn't have been able to run that fast. So I ran at 400 again the next meet, and I ran 48.77. So yeah, it's really out of nowhere. So I remember in JC1, all this was happening so quickly. Yeah, it was like I thought that I was doing well in track before that, but JC1 kind of took it to like the next level, kind of. Yeah.
Okay, so I mean, this is huge because first you clock fast 400 meter time for the first time, 50.
50.1.
And then after that, you take a whole 2 seconds off
Yeah.
400 meter event, which is a big deal. Can you recall, looking back, what was the reaction to that timing in the fraternity?
I think that 50.1 it was fast, but I didn't really like kind of blow me away, because I know that the way that my training was is I had a lot of focus on my speed. So maybe it was only natural that, especially as an 800 meter runner, which is what my focus was on that year, is a good sign. It wasn't too unusual. It was good, but not unusually fast. It was okay. So the next meet that I had to run was the under 18, under 20 championships. Yeah, then I remember running the heats in the morning. I think it was in the morning, and then finals in the evening. So I ran the heats in the morning, and I was taking it easy. Like, I started off fast, and then I kind of eased off toward the end, because I didn't want to spend way too much energy, just wanted to qualify. Then when I found out the time was 49.6, then that just kind of, I was like, okay, I can definitely run faster than that. Like, that was me not putting that much effort. So yeah, I don't know how it didn't. Looking back, I think I did quite well to keep my composure also at that moment, not to get too excited, just to focus on the task ahead and turn up for the finals in the evening. And I ran it a lot harder, and it helped that it was a very close race. There was really a lot of competition that year with Joshua Lim, who's my age, who's a 49-second runner, and Halbert, so who ran a 48.8 that race. So I was just chasing Halbert down, and I just beat him right at the very end. And that's probably why I could run such a 48.7. Yeah, it was really out of the blue. And my coach was surprised. Everyone was very surprised. Yeah, like really, I remember someone telling to me like, why, like we thought that like, isn't the 800 meter enough? Why did you come down and take us in the 4 as well? Yeah. So, and then it made it even more shocking, because I think it wasn't even the day before. It was maybe the day after that competition. I think I was like about to sleep, and I just randomly had a thought like, I wonder what the World Under 18 qualifying is for 400. So I checked it, and then it was 49.2. So I remember I just wasn't able to sleep after that. I was so excited, because World Under 18, I remember when I was like 14 or 15, I was thinking about it like, wow, imagine if I can actually make it there. But it was more of like a dream. It wasn't even like a goal, I would say, because I was thinking, at that point I was still very far away.
So you didn't think it was realistic?
Yeah, I was just thinking like, it was a dream of mine that to compete in the world events, because that's really the the pinnacle, right? So yeah, once I found out I'm actually going to World Under 18 Championships, then I think I was just really happy at that point of time. I was enjoying what I was doing every day, training hard, and then seeing so much success. Yeah, so it just made it very easy to train. Yeah, I think my focus was even more shifted away from school because of all of that. Yeah, because that year also I had a lot of overseas competitions.
This is your JC1.
JC1, yeah. there was Southeast Asian youth, there was Asian youth, then I was training for World Youth, and then SEA Games after that. Yeah, so all in all, I think I missed about like a month of school.
And how did that strike you that you are doing very good times, you are going places,
Yeah.
literally
Yeah.
to the overseas competitions? How different were you from say even a year ago, a year before that?
I would think that whatever confidence I had probably went up even more, because now I'm actually in it. It's not even like a dream anymore. I was usually living the dream basically, traveling and competing and all that. And but I also feel like I was a bit, it made me more dismissive towards my school life. Yeah, and that's something actually I realized over the years as I was competing, especially when I was in school, is that feeling of when you go for competition, and then you have so much, it's like the time of your life, where you're fellow athletes, you're competing, then you come back to school, and then you're like in school the next day, then it's like this crushing reality. Yeah, I think that's something that I probably struggled to deal with.
Yeah, tell me about that. Tell me about that sense of disconnect, I guess.
Yeah.
Unreality of coming back to school.
Yeah, I think that's exactly what it is. It was a bit of a disconnect. It's a huge sudden jump from competing in like Kenya, Japan. The next day you're in school, you're in class, like in a math lesson. So I think what I was thinking about was like, wow, like I've went through all this, but no one kind of understands. Of course, my friends were happy for me and all that, but I know that truly no one was able to understand the sheer like the emotions that I went through and all that. Yeah, so I kind of struggled to deal with that a bit. Yeah, I remember there was once actually, must have been when I was 16, one of the overseas competitions. Then I came back, then I told my teacher like I can't remember what, but I think I just really didn't want to go to school. Yeah. So my track and field teacher was actually understanding, and I think she actually wrote in and she actually got me like 1 or 2 days to like properly settle down after coming back from overseas before I went to school. Yeah, so I remember that. Yeah.
So you come back from the overseas competition, surrounded by athletes, surrounded by people in the sports industry, and you find yourself in the classroom with people concerned about something completely different.
Yeah, yeah.
So that was challenging.
It was, yeah, and especially in JC1 because it was kind of like a brand new class. So JC1 is when the people from other schools will come in. Because before that, my cohort is very small, it's only 200 of us, and we all know each other quite well. So my friends knew me very well as like someone that I'm competing and all that. But JC1 is kind of like a new set of people, and the mentality was a bit different in the school. So because you're preparing for A levels, so everyone was kind of just very narrow-minded, just focusing on A levels. Yeah, so I always had the sense, I don't know if it's true, but I felt like my classmates were wondering like, wow, like it's my A level year, but why am I like competing so much, spending so much time on my training? Yeah, I had that sense that people thought that way about me also. Maybe it was just in my head.
Was it articulated? No. Were there any comments by anyone?
Maybe, yeah, maybe just, I don't remember the comments exactly now. Yeah,
but the feeling
was there. And then I think also the teachers did play a part, because I think the teachers were more focused on the studies part of it compared to my teachers that I had in secondary school. Yeah, because, I mean, understandably, because it's such a huge thing that you're preparing for. So I guess I didn't really have that much. I think some of it is also put it on myself, kind of like in my head alienating myself a bit. Yeah, I remember feeling that way, kind of like.
But you feel that no one could appreciate
Yeah.
within your school setting
Yeah.
what you had just experienced.
I think so. Yeah, I think that's what I was feeling. Yeah. I definitely still have friends, of course, my track and field friends. My track and field teacher that I mentioned, Miss Michelle, like she's also someone that has basically been my mentor since I started track and field. So there were people who did understand, but I guess when you have to spend a lot of time, most of my days is spent in like the class and with people that I didn't really click with. So I guess that's why I was feeling a bit out of place. Yeah.
So when you get that kind of reaction, trying to come back into a school setting, how did you react to it? How did it encourage or discourage you to continue in your sport?
It didn't change what I thought about my sport because I was still 100% into it, especially that year, because doing so well. So that was really the year I was training very, very hard. But I think it kind of pulled me off from studying, putting a lot of effort in my studies. Yeah, because I was still thinking like, you know what, I can catch up last minute. Even though it's JC1, I still have A-level, I will still have my time next year to catch up. So I guess I was a bit more dismissive towards my studies. Kind of like because it's so much more fun to be training and competing overseas than to be in school. So I didn't really have like, I wasn't really fully hearted in studying. Yeah, in JC1. Yeah.
What was motivating you to continue? Was it a particular senior athlete, or was it just a personal goal
In track and field,
at that point in time?
I think it is mostly self-driven. Yeah, I've always been someone that's more self-driven. Like I find it hard to do things if I don't have my own motivation to do it. So it was really self-driven and just the lofty goals that I had. So having been like World Under 18 that year, next year was the World Under 20s. So that was my big aim. And then having run breaking the Under 18 body meter record, that kind of told me that, you know, actually I'm not that far away from the national record. So all these kind of ambitions of mine, that was what was driving me. Yeah.
Okay. So I think I was trying to understand when you were at youth level and then moving to senior levels. Before you move at each major level, move from one level to another higher level, what are some of the things that strike you now as you look back? Were you expecting it to be easy or hard? What was your experience like?
I think I remember thinking that one thing that I definitely miss being a youth athlete would be that whole national school games environment, because it's really quite an amazing period. Like every year, I'm always looking forward to that period because all the schools gather there, and it's just such a as an athlete that I trained for, you know, that's really the highlight of my year basically. But I knew that when I go towards senior level, it probably wouldn't be such a like an event. Maybe I would still go for like major games, but it wouldn't feel the same. You know, you don't have that camaraderie with your other school athletes. You know, you don't have your friends coming out to support you. So that was something that I was thinking I would miss a lot, and I do miss it still now that I'm a senior athlete. Certainly, it's a bit. I would say it's a bit more lonelier being a senior athlete because there's fewer of us. Not many of us are training together. You know, so then there's also your other work commitments in life, like work and study. So it can be a bit more lonelier at times being a senior compared to youth athlete when there's like structured training. You have for most people there will be like a school training group. There's a regular schedule. So that schedule actually is kind of makes it less lonely, I would say. You always have your team around you. Yeah, that's one thing that was a transition from youth to senior athletes. And other than that, so I think as a senior athlete, there's maybe a bit more pressure, maybe a different kind of pressure. Maybe as a youth athlete, you're kind of more, you want to do well for your school. Maybe there's some pressure from your school to do well. But as a senior athlete,
Did you feel a lot of pressure from the school?
no, I didn't. Because, which I really have to be thankful for also. Because my school really saw my long-term future and they prioritize that over my short-term success. So they really give me ample room to, no one really pushed me to say that I had to hit a certain timing or anything like that. They were all just making sure I was okay, and there was like genuine concern just over my welfare. Like I mentioned, my teacher and the other teachers in my track team as well, they really were looking ahead at my future. And kind of, yeah, especially that Miss Michelle Eng, she was kind of like, we always say that she's like my second mother. Yeah, because even when I was 14, 15 years old, a lot of the lessons that I keep with me now, it's like I've learned it from her. Yeah, so maybe just going back a bit, the story is like, I think it was Sec 2. So actually before I competed in that cross country race, there was this NGC track meet. Yeah, so it was a track meet just within our school. And I was running the 1,005, and then that was my proper first race. Maybe it wasn't so competitive, but so I ran it, and of course within the school I won the race, and I won it by quite a bit. And I remember all my friends were like gathered at the finish line, and then they kind of like put their hands out, and then I was like clapping their hands as I finished. And then obviously that doesn't look very sportsman-like when you do that. And then right after the race, she scolded me quite badly, and she told me, like no matter how good you are, if you're not humble, no one's going to like have that. You always have to have like a solid foundation. And I think I just from that point onwards, I just made it a point to like always be aware that I'm not coming off as being arrogant, especially when I compete. So really up to now, that lesson I still like keep. Yeah, so I guess in that way, my school was more concerned with my holistic, uh, me developing as a holistically rather than just for track and field. So whenever there's a point where they felt like it might be too much for me, like for example when I went for SEA Games, and it was already like I missed so much of school already. So they actually were telling me maybe it's better to not run the individual, run the relay, which I'm thankful for because it would have been a bit too much for me. Like I already barely managed to scrape through that year.
This is
JC one, yeah.
This would have been
17.
2017.
Yeah.
So I think when you talk about missing and the larger community you had, one of the things you miss is the whole community around you when you were in school.
Yeah.
The lack of the NSG as you become a senior athlete. What community then did you find yourself in as you left the school scene, as you transitioned into a senior athlete? How did you find a community to support?
So I think my track and field community now will be mostly the other national athletes that I see almost day to day at the track we train. So yeah, these are people that I'm very thankful for also because without them it wouldn't be so enjoyable to come down every day and train. Because now, especially now when I'm a bit more self-coached, it's more self-organized. I don't really have a fixed schedule for my training. So having people there to actually, these are people that truly understand what it's like. They go through the same struggles as me, the same injuries and all that. So definitely can take a lot of solace when I'm talking to them. And so I would say this is my community now, and of course I'm still in close contact with my school community. So I'm actually back there now as a coach. There's always something I wanted to do, to give back to the CCA that actually helped me so much. So I would say these are my track and field community.
Okay, this is going to take you back again to when you're 15. How would you describe your identity as a person when you're 15? This is off the top of your head. Maybe look back.
Kind of like what I described earlier. This is someone that's very naive to everything, just full of life. Like really wanted to just run and very active. Yeah. Even after training like 5-6 times a week, I still had energy to like want to play football during recess. So that was just it.
And then how did that identity change, say when you hit 18?
Yeah, so by 18, I think I also had my first experience with an injury. So I think that kind of changed my identity a bit. Even like after that full year of success in JC1, in JC2 when I had quite a bad hamstring tear, and then there was also another reality check, like how quickly that everything kind of changed. That routine was lost. So it made me into more, I would say I was, during that period, 17, 18 years old, I was a bit more reserved. I was a bit more reserved. I would say I was struggling a bit, definitely with my mental health, when I missed that injury. Yeah, and I wouldn't say I always knew that my talent is still there. Like it's not that I completely lost it or anything, but I was just feeling very down with what's going on and a bit lost. Yeah,
so let's spend a little bit of time talking about the hamstring injury because that was your first serious injury. It threw you off quite a bit. You brought up issues of mental health.
Yeah.
Maybe you want to share a bit about what it was like as you got that injury and what did it do to you?
Yeah, because I think that year, having got so much success the year before, so naturally this year I had even bigger goals. So I wanted to break the national record and I wanted to qualify for the World Under 20, which was all well within my reach. And training was going really well. So the earlier parts of the season, my times were improving a lot, and it was all looking good. But then it was just this one session when I think in January that year, so quite early on, I only had a chance to run one race. Yeah, so I remember I was doing a fast 150 meters on the curve, and then just coming out the curve, I felt like it kind of felt like a huge rubber band hitting my hamstring. That's how it kind of felt like. So it was a hamstring tear. It was a grade 2 hamstring tear, and um, I think the first reaction for me was I just wanted to recover as soon as possible.
You felt the pain? Did you hear anything?
I didn't hear anything, thankfully, but I definitely felt it. Couldn't really walk properly the next few days, and so I would say I didn't really give myself much time to kind of sit down, take a break, and kind of be a bit more at ease with what happened. So I was just rushed straight into like trying to recover. So I was like going from physio to physio, trying out different treatments because I really wanted to get back as soon as possible. I was doing like pool training and everything. So I didn't really give my mind a rest. Yeah, that first half of the year. So I managed to like my main aim was now just to at least make it for the national schools.
How would you describe yourself? Were you optimistic, pessimistic during the period when you were trying to come back?
I would say it's still optimistic, yeah. Because I still had that same intensity, like I still really wanted that whatever intensity I had for my training, I just now was into my recovery. Yeah, so be it like doing pool sessions. So I remember my coach would just be me and my coach at the pool. And then kind of like, because when you run, you kind of in oxygen that to like mimic that, I would do like running underwater while holding my breath. So which is very painful. Like every time you come out, you have like a headache. So I was still training very hard, trying to maintain my fitness, hoping that at least I can still make it for the national school games in April, which I still did in the end. But I only ran the 4x400. So of course it was a bit of like a FOMO kind of feeling. Like I saw that everyone was competing, and then this should have been me also competing with them. So that was a bit of it did make me a bit sad, but I wouldn't say at that point, at first half of the year, I wasn't so devastated.
So you wanted to take part in the national school game because that was your last year,
yeah.
in A division.
Yeah, and I felt bad also because my school finally had quite a good A division team for the 4x4, and we managed to get 4th in the end. But yeah, looking back, like I was also a bit upset that if I had run to my full ability, we could have got even a better placing. Yeah, so that was what was kind of driving me on. It didn't give me much time to think about maybe I should like take a break and take care of my mental health first. Yeah. And also during this period was especially when I showed even less interest in school, even though it was my A-level year. But because my entire mind was just consumed about this injury and trying to recover. So when I went to school, I guess I wasn't really myself. I didn't really pay attention much in class and all that. I was still thinking like, never mind, you know what, I'll just put in a lot of effort at the end of the year and I'll catch up. Yeah. And also because for the one race that I did manage to run, I actually qualified for the Asian Juniors that year. Which when I look back and I remember that when I was 16 years old, I was thinking like this Asian Juniors is when I'm gonna actually get a medal. But now I knew there was lesser chance of that.
Because of the
Yeah, I still did go for the Asian Juniors, but I couldn't run to my best ability. I'm happy that I at least managed to compete. But of course, I only managed to run like 50 seconds, which is definitely far off what from being able to run 47 to 50 is a huge decline. But
how did that poorer result affect you?
I think I kind of came to terms with the fact that I would run a bit slower there. Yeah, I was just happy to be in that environment again, because at least I was able to go for one overseas competition, which is something that I always look forward to. And knowing that it's actually going to be my last overseas competition as a schoolboy, it did make me a bit sad because, like I mentioned earlier, I thought this would be something that I was aiming for it has been something I was aiming for 2-3 years before that. Yeah, but I still enjoyed myself a lot because it was a very good team that I traveled with. We had a lot of fun. Yeah, so I wouldn't say that I look back on that very upset. It's mostly just good memories of that trip. Yeah.
So your hamstring held up enough for you to go.
Yeah.
And then national school games out of the way.
Yeah.
Asian youth junior out of the way. Then what happened after that?
Yeah, then everything came crashing down basically after that. Because suddenly I didn't have to train anymore. There's nothing to train for. All I had to do was study. And then kind of that part of my mind that was keeping me occupied, just like there's nothing there anymore. And I was just left with the reality that I kind of wasted my last year as a schoolboy. It kind of hit me very hard. It didn't go well. And then now all I have to do for the next 6 months is study. And it was very overwhelming because I kind of knew that how much I had left to catch up. I left myself a lot to catch up on. So it was a huge task ahead of me. I guess I kind of didn't have that energy, like the mental energy again.
So did it crash?
Yeah,
Or did it crash, or did you just what happened?
It's a bit confusing when I look back now, but I just knew that I definitely went into like depression because I had no energy to go to school. Even when I was in school, yes, just mentally and physically, actually no energy. Didn't really want to be in class. Even if I was in class, I couldn't focus. If I tried to, also I couldn't focus. Couldn't really remember what was being taught at school. Yeah, so I was like skipping classes. I sometimes even skipping school. Like it was just that bad. Yeah, when I woke up, I just didn't really have the motivation to go to school.
And skipping school is not something that you used to do. Right?
No, never. Even when I train, it's not something I would do. I think at first also, I think a lot of it also because as an athlete, you kind of just push through everything. And I've never really experienced any, even before this, no injuries, not much hardship, I guess, in my athletics journey before this. So it was quite a new experience for me to have to deal with. Suddenly things not going well for me. And I think at first I was just pushing through it again because I didn't even think that it was something as bad as like being depressed or anything like that. Yeah, it was only when I actually talked to my girlfriend at that time. So she herself had experience going through this. So she told me that maybe you should speak to someone, or you should at least talk to your parents first. Yeah. So
When she first suggested that to you, you were hearing this probably for the first time, that you should go and talk to someone.
yeah,
What was your reaction to that suggestion?
I think I did listen to her because it did make sense. Like I knew that I was going through something. Like I know this isn't how I usually am. Yeah, so I was willing to listen to what she had to say, and I did talk to my parents. Yeah, so I told my mom, and yeah, I think after that it was. I wouldn't say things got better after that, but that was at least the start of things getting better.
The decision to talk to your parents, to your mom first,
Yeah.
about what you were going through, was it a difficult one to make?
Yeah, that definitely was difficult because, like I said earlier, I'm someone that I think other people also view me as someone that's capable because not just in track and field, but in my studies as well. I've been, even with all my training, I've been coping so far. So, of course, I think my parents also, my mom probably didn't know that I was going through it because what I would do is I would usually just lock myself out in my room and she would think that I'm just studying, but actually I'm like just on the bed doing nothing, probably eating junk food, just having no energy to do anything. So that was what I was up to. So I think she was a bit surprised also, but it definitely helped because my mom is such an understanding person. She's never placed any pressure on me to do well, both in my track and my studies. She's
Do you remember her reaction? Can you recall what was it about her reaction to what you shared that was helpful?
I think, okay, to be honest, I guess it's a bit blurry when I look back. That memory is a bit hazy of that period, but I know that she wasn't dismissive of it at all. Like she genuinely just straight away wanted to support me, so that really helped. She didn't like come at it with a mentality of like, oh, we should just. She didn't dismiss it as something that's not as serious as it is. Yeah. So she immediately was talking about what do you want to do, how do you want to make it better, what can we do. So that's when I also decided to go and see a therapist.
Yeah. Before that, what about your dad's reaction? Did you speak to him personally about this, or was it just your mom told you about it?
I think it's my mom because my dad is more of he's less vocal. Yeah, he's more of the parent that does things like fixes things, fetches us here and there. So he's not. I don't usually have like a lot of emotional talks with him. Yeah, it's usually with my mom. Yeah, but my dad is just as understanding. Yeah, and so after I told my mom, I think we did have some talks with my dad around as well about how I'm feeling and what we can do from here. Yeah, so both my parents were very supportive.
So if your dad doesn't vocalize, what was it about his actions that you found him supportive?
My dad really just shows his love through the things he does. Like he just simple things, as in like the food he goes that I like that he buys for me, the fact that he fetches me from here to there, even though he's so tired from his work. Yeah, I think through this, like he's never been much of a talker, but he definitely shows his affection through that way. Yeah.
So the decision was made to go seek help.
Yeah.
What happened next?
So I went to therapist, and my mom came along the first time, as I remember. Yeah, so she to speak to my mom as well separately, and then that was really, I guess, the first time I've ever had such a even a counseling session. I don't think I've even been for like counseling before that or anything like that. So immediately, I think it felt good to just vent out everything. And I remember the first thing that she kind of helped me to do was to structure my thoughts. Because at that point, it was just a whirlwind of like so many different emotions. I didn't know what I was feeling. There were so many different things. So she kind of helped me structure it, and we looked at each issue like one by one, which made it a bit less overwhelming. Yeah. So I went for therapy sessions, so like maybe every few weeks. Yeah, and it definitely helped. There were times I even I'm not someone that also cries a lot, but I remember crying a few of the therapy sessions, which was it's like a very new thing for me. Because even when I was going through all that, I never even like kind of broke down. Yeah, just kind of kept it all in. Yeah.
Do you recall what was it about the session that made you cry?
Not really. Actually, I don't recall. Yeah. But I remember also my girlfriend at the time also, she was very, because she saw the same therapist before. So she was definitely someone that understood everything I was going through. So she was someone that I could actually, I'm thankful for at that time. Because it could have, if I would have felt very alone in that journey, even with my parents and all that, but to have someone in school that knew what I was going through, yeah, that.
So you had a series of sessions, and it was helpful to help you restructure how you thought of things. You had parental support, you had your girlfriend support. Yeah. And how did the rest of the year play out for you?
Actually, I would say I also had talks with my Miss Eng, teacher I mentioned. So that was also something that helped me a lot, because I think she noticed as well that my grades were really horrible at that point. So she had a talk with me as well to find out what was going on. And when she found out, she actually, I remember what struck me most was actually she herself was upset that she didn't realize I was going through all this. Because I mean, she's just as excited as me whenever I run, and whatever like struggles I faced with my injury, she was also there with me. But she didn't really, I guess she herself and like the friends around me didn't think that I would be going through so much mentally. Yeah, so talking to her helped a lot. Because I remember she shared her own experiences, and knowing that now I also have the support from the teachers in my school. So if at all, like I knew at that point already towards the end of as I was getting to my A levels, I still was very far off, and I knew it was gonna be quite bad. Yeah. So at least I knew that there's some form of understanding. Like the teachers, especially her, who is very important to me, knows that I'm not doing this just because I was like slacking off, or yeah. So I also spoke to my friends. I think that's probably the last group that I kind of had to talk to was my closer friends in school, who were also very surprised that I was like hiding all this so well. Yeah, but talking to them also was another form of release. Yeah, because and it showed me that they are truly friends that support me a lot, because they were so like concerned with everything, and they really took the time to like understand what was happening with me. So yeah. That happened, and then so I tried making plans to study. So it was just me. So even after the therapy sessions, I wouldn't say that it helped, like it completely healed me or anything like that. I was still very depressed, and I think it was mostly I just had to get the A levels over and done with before I could feel a lot better. Yeah, and I don't have. I mean, there's definitely not a time that I would say I look back fond upon, because knowing that you're going to such a major exam, and then you're so like unprepared to the point where sometimes I'm just like sitting there at the exam hall, really not knowing what to do. So it was that bad, and it's like I was thinking about how I used to be so capable of my studies, and to like suddenly have that like fall from grace, it was quite a hard thing to accept. Yeah. So yeah, but I already made, so through talking with my mom and all that, we kind of came to the ultimatum, like even if I don't do well, which I knew I wasn't going to do well for these A levels, there's still other options. I can still retake it. Yeah. So knowing that actually there is the option of still retaking the next year have made it a bit better. So I just got through the A levels, sat through the papers, did what I could, it's still really really bad, but then I was done and a bit of a relief, but also because I was going to NS next month, so that was something that was
So at that stage when you knew that okay, A levels done,
yeah
that pressure and the pain of studying is over,
yeah
some relief, but NS is coming up. And at that time, what were your thoughts around your sport?
yeah. So I wouldn't say I felt actually yeah maybe I could say I kind of fell out of love with it, but not because of I yeah the motivation kind of that I had, the drive wasn't really there anymore. Mostly because I knew I was going to NS, no idea what's going to happen the next 2 years, still having that injury. So it's like, to me, it was like maybe it's something that I have to consider in the future. Like I don't have it's not really something that I can focus on right now. Even if I wanted to, don't really have the time to it either. Yeah, so it was a bit to the back burner, like all that dreams that I had about track and field, kind of pushed aside a bit. I was just mostly thinking about just getting better, feeling better. Yeah, and I remember when I got my enlistment letter, so I was very upset that I didn't get April, because it's either January or April, and then mine was 5th January, so I was a bit like just wanted a break, like just wanted some time to kind of settle down, go straight in. But looking back, it was actually a blessing in disguise. Yeah, I'm happy that I actually got it done earlier. Yeah, and actually going to NS was surprisingly a good change of pace. Yeah, it was like it forced me to kind of like grab me out of the whole situation I was in and put me into a completely new situation. It's a whole different world, and that actually surprisingly helped me, like mental health wise, because it kind of left all my whatever was happening behind on the mainland, and I was just in Tekong, and then meeting new friends, and it wasn't as bad as I thought it would be. So yeah,
You must be one of the rare ones who said BMT made you feel happy.
yeah. Not while I was in it, but overall, I think at the end it helped me. Yeah.
So I guess what we'd like to do just this last part of the interview is just when you look back at some of the way you coped as a student athlete. Let's talk about people who were in your support system. If you look back, who were in your support system? Who were the more important ones in your support system? Looking back.
Yeah. So like I mentioned, first and foremost, my parents, and an extension my family as well, my younger siblings. Of course, maybe they weren't very sure what's going on with me, but I mean, they were still there for me. And yeah, so parents, first of all, technically would be my track and field teacher. She was someone that really helped me a lot. Then my girlfriend back then and my friends. So probably these four groups of people were the main. Yeah.
And as a student athlete, going through a very rigorous academic system we have,
Yeah.
what was your relationship like with your parents? As we all know, parents sometimes can be quite concerned about
Yeah.
their children's academic grades.
Right.
As a student athlete, sometimes training up to 6 times a week when you were in B division. How did your parents react to you as a student athlete?
Yeah, actually, it's the thing because I would say my parents are a bit more unusual in the way that they, right from the start, they always told me that no matter what, just do what makes you happy. That's the message they always tried to tell me. So, yeah, even before I was in track and field, they just made sure that their priority was never in me studying, hitting a certain grade. There was never any pressure on that. So that definitely helped as a student athlete, because I know that, and maybe it's also because of the type of person I am, that I know I'm self-driven, so maybe I didn't need that extra push from my family, and maybe my parents knew that also. They knew that I always kind of had things sort of in control until it wasn't, but yeah. Yeah. I remember my mom saying that maybe she felt a bit guilty that she didn't push me a bit harder, because she felt that maybe if they had pushed me a bit harder, then I would have studied a bit harder. Like, yeah, but yeah, maybe because I'm the first child, so it's a bit of a trial and error. Yeah.
So what do you think your parents did or said that made you encouraged you as a student athlete?
The main thing is that they showed as much importance to my track and field as I did. They could see how important it was to me, and they didn't try and play it down. They were just as they saw the dreams that I have, and they were equally as excited for me to go and achieve them. So I didn't feel like I was all alone in trying to have these like crazy ideas of what I want to be in the future. So they were fully supportive, and also like when I was going through that that turbulent period, they their mind wasn't even on the studying part of it, like the A levels, even though it's so important. They were just first and foremost concerned about my well being. So my mom straight away told me like, don't even worry about like, just focus on your own mental well being. Forget about the A levels. We'll deal with it next year. Yeah, there's always a way there's always a way like to fix things. Yeah, so that gave me a lot of encouragement and made me feel less overwhelmed. Yeah, at least I know that I always had my parents were never going to be disappointed in me in what I was going through.
When it came down to competitions, when you look at some of the bigger competitions you went to, how did you cope with the mental pressure of competitions? What served you well? What messed you up and you never did it again?
I think when I was in maybe my Sec 4 year, I remember I was really trying to chase timings a lot. So every competition I was very like, okay, I need to hit this time, I need to do this. I was so focused, and like on the race day as well, I had everything like so planned out, and I was kind of like shut off everyone, like put my earphones on, just trying to like focus, but it didn't work out for me because especially that year, like I think I wanted to break sub 2 minutes from 800, but I must have ran 2 minutes flat like 6 times or 7 times, just keep missing it by milliseconds. Yeah, it was so frustrating. I didn't even hit it that year. But the next year, it was actually because of one of my friends, so it's Albert, the one I was racing with. Then I remember there was this competition we were racing, and before the meet, he was just like having so much fun. Like, he was like running around, just like fooling around with his friends, and then he still ran such a good timing. Then I was thinking like, maybe I should just approach this completely differently. Maybe if I just stay as relaxed as possible, it might help me. So I actually tried that. I went into my races that year with like a different mentality, like of just that all the hard work's done. I'm just going to go there, and instead of like trying to force myself to zone out, I actually just decided to just keep talking to people around me. Like I just talked to my friends, just thinking about anything but the race, and it actually clicked for me. Like right when I started doing that, I started enjoying competitions a lot more, and yeah, just naturally I performed a lot better. So that was a kind of like the mental. I feel like every athlete has like something that works for them. Like what works for me may not work for other people. So there's this like right amount of relaxation and tension to get that ideal mindset. I think especially sports like track and field swimming, a lot of it's like your body against someone else's body. So your mind is part of your body. It's not just your physical part of it. A lot of it is mental. So once I learned that, I managed to control my nerves and just that really helped a lot. Then when I went for, like you mentioned, the major games, using that same mindset, I didn't actually get that much. I didn't feel that much pressure because I was there just truly enjoying myself. Like I made it here, especially when I went for the World Under 18 Championships, which was like a dream come true. So I actually surprisingly was less nervous for that because I was happy enough being there. I was just grateful enough to be the chance to be there. Like however I performed to me was less important than whole experience itself.
Okay, I guess now from the vantage point of being 22 this year,
Yeah.
maybe just as a last question, what do you think this whole student athlete experience has taught you? What skills do you think you have now? Looking back, you've been doing this since Sec 1, at a quite intense level. Almost 10 years.
Yeah. I think probably the first and foremost is mental resilience. That one is, maybe I would have built it up in some other way if I wasn't doing track, but definitely because of track and field, and not just because of the hardships I faced, but just the discipline that it took to kind of get myself to training every day, and to like push myself through all that pain, the mental pain and the physical pain. Definitely made me a lot more resilient. Right now, as a 22-year-old, even if I face there's any obstacles that anyone would normally face, I don't take it too personally. I kind of learned over the years how to manage myself, both mentally and physically. So as a youth athlete, maybe I didn't really know how to take care of my body that well, but having that experience over the years kind of made me understand my body better also, when I should be pushing myself, when I shouldn't, and mentally I kind of know when I need to take a bit of a break from training. I kind of know better that I'm not just like I can't just put in 100% effort every day, just go at it every day. Yeah, and that same thing applies to my life as well. Like when I study, when I try and let's say my relationships and all that, it kind of gives me that confidence and that I'm capable of managing myself. Yeah, so yeah, really too many things that it has taught
So
me.
mental resilience, knowing how to take care of yourself.
Yeah, and also like I touched on earlier, that self-confidence, that as long as it doesn't go on to becoming overconfidence or like arrogance, if I keep it within, I think I've kind of learned how to just keep it within myself, that self-esteem to kind of drive me into whatever I do. Yeah, and I've got it from my track and field. Yeah, because
If I may say so too, you also know when to ask for help.
yeah, definitely. So of course I've had other injuries, and I'm not like, yeah, I know when to ask for help when I'm feeling stressed. But also talking about the injury part of things, I know that I don't take it too. I would say I know how I'm going to feel now. I kind of expect, okay, I'm going to feel a bit disappointed, but I know how to manage that feeling. Yeah.
Hey, Thiruben, thanks for taking the time over the last hour and a half,
Yeah.
hour 50, to unpack the student athlete journey you've taken. 10 years, that's quite a long time.
Yeah.
And we wish you all the best in the next stage of life.
It was fun. Thank you so much.